Very good, friends. Hi, Doc South here. Getting ready to head up to the Chatterbox, but I thought before I did, maybe I could knock out another video blurb. Huh? Yeah. And we're in the middle of a Memorial Day weekend, so I thought I have another soldier story for you. And I think you'll like this. Of course, this is the week, that we should honor those who served our country, especially in the military. But I like to include the police, the fire, the rescue members, all of them. They do such a good job, and honestly, if you get to talking to like police or rescue or of course fire department folks, their job ain't so easy either. And boy, there's a lot of times, man, they got to be scared out of their minds, and yet they go and do what they do for us. So, anyone up to serving, especially life on the line type serving, is certainly okay in my book. Okay. Well, here we go. This one's entitled, and this is about a military veteran I met long ago. It's called On the Train Out of Washington. And it was so long ago, but it seems like yesterday. Oh, and by the way, I might break into this now and then to interject. We'll see. Okay. Where I see it might be necessary. It was long ago, but it seemed like yesterday. I was just a dumb college student, and frankly, I don't think I was getting any brighter. It might be that college wasn't meant to make you smart. It might be meant more to make you learn to open your eyes, ears, and connect them to your soul. Then when you've seen and heard enough, well, it's all right to open your mouth and talk right and build a bit. Other than that, yeah, keep your eyes open and your ears open too. Well, I was keeping my eyes open at the Union Station in Washington, D.C. back in 1965. Back in 1965, rather, that was a good idea. Keep your eyes open in the Union Station. The once proud station was a pretty rough place. I think the waiting room seats were heated back then, and, well, all the homeless folks were steady customers. Not many passengers, but, well, yeah, a lot of homeless in there. And they were pretty smart because those seats were nice and warm. Even if the steam was off, sleeping in the waiting room was way better than sleeping under newspapers outside. There was one funny thing about the men's room at the Union Station. I don't know if that's still the case. I haven't been down there in a while, but if you're they've really remodeled the place. It's actually a wonderful place, beautiful station now. But if you were doing your thing at the urinals at the men's room, you could look outside at the Capitol building. Yeah, they had windows right above the urinals. Yeah, and it was probably the best view of the Capitol building, the best view of the Capitol in town. It really was. I don't know why someone didn't, get a few models, along to be along while doing their thing at the urinals, and then get the Capitol building, shining, glistening in the window, the men's room window. I don't know. I thought it was. I always thought it'd be a great deal. Maybe someone has already done it. I don't know. But I can see a lot of photographers dropping everything now and running, for the Capitol building with a few guys they know. Anyway, best view of the Capitol building in town. I'll bet postcards of the dome taken from that vantage point would sell like crazy. I discovered this view early and never missed a chance to take it in. Well, I finished my business and was heading out to the main station lobby when a very drunk old-timer staggered out of one of the stalls. And I mean stagger. Oh, yeah. Was he ever loaded? I figured him to be over 65 years old. He wasn't a big man. I remember that he wore a beat-up old hat that had seen better days. It was one of those hats everyone wore in the movies, back in 1930, in the 1930s movies. Yeah, you like the fedora thing? Yeah. He wore a suit and tie. Yes, he did. It was a striped and kind of blue-gray suit. The tie hung more like a noose. But the tie part was down. It was, yeah, okay. That suit hadn't been pressed in years, and even though it was chilly, well, he was pretty sweaty. In fact, he was very sweaty. Still, there was something about him. Even though he smelled of urine and sweat, I really didn't think the worst of him. He seemed like perhaps In better days, he was a decent guy. I don't know. I just, yeah. What I did, I went and I said hello to him. How you doing? He tipped his hat, sort of, and staggered over to the sink to wash his face. There was a bottle in his coat pocket. Out in the lobby, the police were trying to keep him off the heated seats and away from the passengers. He did stink to high heaven. Oh, they had to do something. They did their best to be nice. Maybe they knew him. He might have been a regular. I wondered if he was a congressman. Maybe he was. My train got its boarding call, and, well, I went to trackside. Guess who was right behind me? Yep. I kind of slowed up and kept my distance, and just made sure that he didn't stagger off the train platform. That wouldn't have been good. It wasn't that far a drop, but still. Somehow he got up the steps and into the coach seats ahead of me. Okay. The porter wasn't that happy to see him, and just shook his head and kind of whisked his hand past his nose for relief. Oh, yeah. The porter checked my ticket and said there was plenty of seats. Just pick one. I found a nice window seat in my coach car. My older friend didn't have much luck choosing a seat. He kept wanting to sit with one person or another, and, well, they just wouldn't have it. I guess he wanted to be sociable, and they didn't. Some folks were polite about it, and, well, some weren't. Eventually, he got to me. I'm just not the one to be rude, so, well, he sat down next to me. The train started to back out of the station on its way to the switch track spur that would set us on the westbound the B&O rails out to Ohio. We'd be traveling up the Potomac and then cut across West Virginia and eventually into Ohio. Me, I was heading for Ohio University, Athens, Ohio, southeastern Ohio. Not much, sort of like West Virginia, just the mountains are a bit lower. In fact, I don't think they're mountains. I think they're gullies. Yeah, they look like mountains because you're down in the gully, right? Anyway, the fellow offered me a swig and was glad when I passed on the offer. We got to talking. It was the usual small talk. He was heading for West Virginia, I don't know, he was heading for West Virginia. I think my hair was longer than usual, and he wanted to know if I was one of those hippies he'd been hearing about. I told him I didn't really think I was much of anything, truth be known. I just kind of liked my hair long. I felt it looked better long. We talked about that for quite a while. It was getting near sundown, and we'd been talking for almost an hour. We passed through Harper's Ferry, and he was telling me how relatives of his attacked the town during the Civil War. I didn't get what side they were on, but he said I didn't get to hear what side, north or south. Didn't seem to know. I think that town changed hands a few times back in the day. He said he'd been in World War I. Then all of a sudden his voice got kind of quiet. He stopped talking, and in a minute or two he started crying. Between sobs, he said how he killed so many people. He was really shaking. I told him how he really shouldn't feel so bad because war is just that way, right? He was having none of my viewpoint and just kept crying. I didn't see it then, but now I think he was right and I was very wrong. He was reaching into his pants pocket as I talked, and he pulled out a fistful of this stuff. I mean, you name it. There in his open palm was a couple of used tissues. Used one of them to kind of wipe his nose and his eyes. And he had a cork. There was a cork in there. A few small coins, a piece of pencil, a paper clip, and I don't know, maybe a lucky pebble. Underneath it all, though, was a medal. He told me to look at it. I held it in my hand and brushed some gunk off it. I'll never forget for as long as I live. I'll never forget what that was. I had in my hand, friends, the Congressional Medal of Honor. I did. Is this what I think it is? Did you get this in the war? I asked him, and he said between sobs that it belonged to him, and he cried all the harder. I asked him what he did to earn this highest of medals. I remember him saying, well, you've got to be a real hero. And he just pointed at them, and he said it as if he was afraid. Yeah, and just very upset. He just pointed at the medal and said that he killed a lot of people to get that thing. Then he just cried all the harder in the dark. It was almost to him that the medal was a kind of curse. I gave it back to him. He put it back into his pocket, and, well, soon he was out cold. I didn't know what his stop was. Somewhere in West Virginia. I fell asleep too. I hear that he slept past his station stop in the night, and they had to let him off in the next town with a return trip ticket. For your information, I got his name and looked up his war record. I say here in my story, I won't tell you his name, but God, he's been gone a long time now, I'm sure. If he were still alive, God, he'd probably be 130. So I won't tell you his name, but I will tell you his name now. His name was Sargent Michael J. Donaldson. You can look him up. I will say this: he actually got that medal not for killing, but for saving a dozen or more of his injured squad members. They were all ambushed by Germans holding the high ground with machine guns, and he went out of cover. He was safe. He managed to get to the safety behind some rocks. I don't know how many, but some rocks, and yet there were wounded members of his platoon, his unit. They were getting ripped to shreds out in the open. He ran out something like, I'm told, 15 to 25 times to pull people in. Injured, wounded. Injured is wounded, isn't it? And whatever he could do, he dragged them to safety, and he was dodging bullets every inch of the way. Whether he shot back, I don't know. He probably didn't have time to. I would think pulling the people back was the big thing. And again, anywhere at least a dozen times, but probably more. And that's what got him the medal. Now, in further actions, he may have done some killing, of course, in a war. You could tell that he had. Those tears were very real tears. He was crying. But the medal came from extreme kindness in the face of horror and the hate of war. I don't know. All I can think is God bless that guy. Quite a hero. Sergeant Michael, I think it's Michael J. Donaldson. Look him up, you'll see. And again, I was honored to meet him. So anyway, I thought you'd like that for Memorial Day weekend. Keep that in mind when you see some of the soldiers out there, especially some of them returning from war. It was no picnic for them. Okay. We'll see you later, friends. Thank you, and God bless.